Everybody listen to We're Not Wizards, because we are the best, and we're not wizards, no matter what anybody says. Goodbye.
Hello and welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard. I'll be your host for 2019. Yes, we're still singing 2019 until it gets past into January, then we'll do a normal intro. Now, see when it comes to Christmas Day, right? And then you get your presents and it confirms one of two things. It either confirms that you've been quite good during the preceding year, or that you think it could be improved. Now, I got socks and a jumper for Christmas, so I thought I must have done something wrong. I didn't realise that my Christmas present wasn't going to be arriving until a month later. Because joining me today, it's a man, it's a legend. He has been the mayor of the city of remnants. He has set that place on fire. In the wake, he has brought us ashes, and he has risen the phoenix born. I bring you the vice president of ideas, wonder, and loveliness. It is His Royal Highness, the Baron of Brilliance, Isaac Vega.
Oh my gosh. Like, I have never had such a lovely intro. Thank you so much, Richard. Wow, I feel very special now.
I must admit that I don't do that with everybody.
Your check will be in the mail.
Is it? I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I'm quite willing to accept. Let's face it, let's not lie about it. If somebody sent me a check in the mail, I'd be like that. I'm not going to be like, no, I'm not going to take that money. I just ran a Kickstarter, for goodness sake. If somebody sent me some more money, I'd be like, yeah, that'd be fantastic. Thanks very much. First of all, thank you very, very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
The reason, I suppose, for everybody who's listening to us for the first time, the reason that we do this is because I get to speak to people like Isaac, so na. And the other reason that we do this is because we like to, as I say, we like to speak to people who are involved in the industry, who are creating, who are helping the board gaming space become a better place. And I've had John Gilmore on twice, so I've been building up the courage to ask Isaac on. And I asked him, and guess what he said? He said, yes, so what I'm saying to you kids out there is, chase your dreams, because sometimes your dreams come true.
Oh my gosh.
So
aim higher, kids.
Look, I'm an old man. I'm a realist as well, you know what I mean? I was like, I'm looking up at the moon and I'm saying, I don't want to stretch too much, I'm going to hurt my back. That's what I'm kind of looking at here. One of the things that we like to do on the show is we like to find out a little bit about kind of like your history in relation to the hobby. Yeah?
Yeah.
So with that respect, we're going to have a little look at the baseball cap of the past before we look into the kind of the woolly hat of the present and look at the plaid hat of the future.
Sounds good.
So do you want to start off by telling us a little bit about kind of how you got into the kind of the hobby, the space in general?
Yeah, so I actually didn't know much about the board games industry. I didn't know how big it was as a hobby until I kind of came back from college. I had moved back from Arizona back to my hometown of Gibsonburg, Ohio, after I dropped out of college and didn't really know what to do with myself. So I kind of hooked up again with a lot of my high school friends that I used to play like collectible card games with. I used to play Dragon Ball Z and a little bit of Magic the Gathering and things like that. And they had all transitioned over to the wonderful board gaming world. So they introduced me to games like Puerto Rico. Dominion had just come out not that long before then. And I like fell in love. I was like, oh my gosh, all this stuff exists. This is pretty cool. And a few months after getting to know what board games even were, I was just like, you know what? Let me try making one. I'm really bored up here in Ohio. So I might as well.
I heard is Ohio that bad? I've heard there's not enough work to do.
There's really not much to do. Let me just say I'm like I miss some people there for sure, but I don't miss living in Ohio.
Is it known as here we go, this going up an octave. Is it known as like the dairy state or something like that? Am I getting that wrong?
I know zero facts from Ohio. There's a lot of corn in my area.
So is that the thing? It's like, what do you want to do?
Our tree is the Buckeye. There we go.
What do you want for dinner? Well, you can have corn on the cob, or we could have corn grits, or do you want popcorn? It's like, okay.
It's all corn, all the time.
So was your first game? I mean, obviously your first game was called Collectible Corn, the card game.
Yes, but that one didn't get any traction. That one stayed contained.
I heard it was primarily because in order to carry a deck, you basically had to carry a sack full of corn with you, with different kind of coloured kernels on it.
It was mostly a history of my life there in Ohio. And no one was interested in that product.
So you're sitting around.
Yep, I'm sitting around.
Sitting around chilling out.
I try some stuff out, and lo and behold, my mom comes home one day with a business card from Colby, the owner of Plaid Games, who had done a talk at the church that she went to, and she's just like, "Hey, check this guy out." And I was like, okay, fine, I guess. I was reluctant at first, but I didn't have any other leads. My life wasn't going in a great direction anyway, so might as well try it out. So I showed him the first game I'd worked on, and it was terrible, and he hated it. But he was very nice about it and not telling me that information, and encouraged me to keep working. So about...
What was that game?
That game was a bad titled game called Ellie Quest. It was an elemental roll and move game. Let's not talk about that game. Eventually, I pitched what would become my first game, City of Remnants, and he enjoyed the concept so much that he told me to start working on it right away. And shortly after I showed him the prototype, he ended up contracting it, kept working on it, and that's pretty much how everything started. I just kept going to his game nights that he hosted and seeing how the company evolved, volunteered for everything I could possibly be a part of, and eventually, I think about 2.5 years in, 3 years down the line, I got hired full-time as his first hire.
In terms of, like, if we take a step back, in terms of your kind of current exposure to board games at that time, in relation to City of Remnants, had you been exploring a lot of the kind of the board game designs that were out there because you were designing your own game? Had you been like, I've got to see, I want to make sure that nobody else is making something.
I mean, honestly,
kind of thing.
I was researching as much as I could, but BGG was and still is an elusive website to me. So it wasn't really like I was so steeped in it that I knew what was going on. I'd hear comparisons later on about things that I've done before that I never even heard of. So and as you know, the board game industry has only grown so much. So I kind of just then and now still kind of follow what I think is needed and what my heart is telling me that I want to do. So, no, I wasn't like super, super steeped in the industry so much. I mean, by that point, I hadn't even gone to my first convention, I think. So I was pretty out of it.
Do you think that kind of helped? Not being the guy that was kind of influenced by all these other things, not sitting there and second guessing yourself. Because I one of the things I guess I see in the board game space, because there's so many games now. I mean, there's like, I don't know if you were around for Tuesday, but there was about 6 different games launched on Kickstarter, and I was like, oh my days, and they're all completely different. Yeah. But I was wondering if, you kind of just saying, right, I'm going to get on with this. You didn't have the additional pressure of comparing and contrasting all these games. You just kind of went, well, I'm just going to do it, and if it's like something else, then that's kind of fine.
I mean, really, it was just about it being exciting to me. I've always been a creative person, and it was something that I just wanted to do. And I was lucky enough to be within the vicinity of someone who was starting a company and getting things going and moving forward. And when I saw that opportunity and had the ability to, volunteer more and be a part of that more and just see what the world was like, I was just like, I can't just let this pass me by, and I learned as much as I possibly could along the way, but I wasn't necessarily scared of not knowing what I was doing or everything that needed to be done right from the beginning. I think that if people just wait around for that, they're never going to get anywhere because you're always going to need to know more information.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of just having the Colby's kind of card kind of handed to you. I mean, I know a lot of people that end up kind of doing a lot of kind of pitching and stuff like that. Were you tempted? Have you been tempted at the time to kind of, in those formative days when Colby had you on as a contractor, to kind of say, well, let's see if anybody else is also interested in kind of other designs?
Yeah, I did pitch some games to some other companies during that 3-year period before I got hired full time. But I mean, honestly, how I felt is that if Plaid Hat wasn't interested in something I was doing, it wasn't really worth doing. And that's kind of how the other games that were ended up being developed just never really got enough of my attention for them to turn into anything else for any other company. There was one game that ended up almost getting signed, but I ended up deciding that I didn't want to sign with that company, and so I just kind of stuck with Plaid Hat. I felt like I was more a part of what was happening, not only as a contractor, but as part of the business and its growth. I was just invested in the entire thing, so my heart and my my efforts were there, and I felt that the company was new enough. And well, I don't know if I had this much clarity in my mind at the time, but I just enjoyed being a part of it, to tell you the truth. I enjoyed being a part of it, and I wanted to be a part of it more. And that's where my heart was. That's what I was pushing for, and
did you feel you kind of found your place?
Yeah.
I mean, when you started kind of working with them, were you like,
yeah, very much so. I mean, I think that the thing that really solidified it in my mind was when I had the opportunity to work on the BioShock board game. Was kind of like, okay, this is going to be something different, because I went to college to try to have a video game design career. That's what I wanted to do. But I got very discouraged from the kind of the system of the video game industry at that time. It was pretty much you have to invest about 10 to 12 years of your life before someone's really even willing to listen to an idea that you have for a video game. And this was before the indie craze of video games and things exploded again. But I was just so discouraged by that. I was just like, man, I don't really want to invest so much of my life working towards somebody else's dreams. So I was just like, I'll just be a regular guy. I'll just sell insurance or do whatever, and just get some money in any way.
You could
whatever.
You could be a doctor or something like that. About 7
it's
years,
like whatever.
12 years video games. 12 years video games to get a 70% rated on Metacritic, which means I don't get my bonus, or I'm just a doctor.
Right. So, I mean, and there's no knocking people that enjoy that and love that for their careers. It just wasn't. No. It wasn't for me. I wanted to be the person who was inventing designing the video game. I didn't want to be the guy that was designing one character in a video game that could jump around.
Yeah.
That just wasn't what I was hoping for, but that kind of position isn't something that somebody right straight out of college gets, And when board games came around, it was an opportunity to kind of scratch that design itch, enjoy crafting a world from nothing and seeing it function right in front of you. So once I got a hold of that, it was kind of like I was accomplishing that dream. And then for it to kind of all turn around and then have access to a video game company at the same time was just like, whoa, like this is an avenue to make my dreams come true. Not just a different path. Like this is a possibility to kind of have everything that, younger Isaac wanted. And I really enjoyed that process and thought, I need to focus on this. I need to make this more than just something I'm doing. I need to make this a career.
Was there a different level of pressure on you, say, doing the BioShock Infinite board game?
Oh, yes.
Than there was doing City of Remnants. Because City of Remnants, I take it you were just like saying, right, here's my ideas, Colby. This is what we're doing here. Here's the gangs. Here's the resources. This is the grid. This is what we're doing. And it's your vision, it's your story. If you want to say these guys, the red guys are militaristic, the yellow guys are doing this, the blue guys are doing this, and you're the guy, you're kind of bringing the ideas with the table. Whereas obviously in BioShock Infinite, you're tapping into what was, I guess, the kind of the one of a really kind of important and very, very well known IP,
right? And that's
at the kind of time,
and that comes with its pressures. Like being able to design a game where you get to go ahead and work on the world allows you to craft the world around the game in areas where it doesn't always make sense, or kind of this went in a different direction than I intended the story to go or the characters to go, but I can go ahead and change that because I have the ability to do that since I'm crafting the world. When you're designing based around an IP that exists, you have to respect that IP. You want to make sure that people are going to still see the things that they're familiar with in your representation of that brand's. So you have to take all of that into consideration, and then there are changes and things that come from people that own the property that have to be made in order to please them as well. So you're not only trying to please the customer, but you're also trying to please the people that own the rights to the characters that you are representing.
Yeah, I mean, I see that. Let's face it, one of the most obvious ones is the Dark Souls board game, where obviously one of the things that Steamforge has said is waiting for them to get feedback regarding changes that they've made. Yeah. Has turned into kind of like a review process, and they've got other departments kind of coming on from FromSoft and Bandai Namco saying, yes, no, you've got to change this, you've got to change that. I remember, for instance, there was this thing where they were introducing the NPC figures, and people were saying, they're not holding any weapons, they're just kind of standing there like they're passive, why aren't they in poses? And they said, well, we have to get clearance to put them in particular poses, kind of thing, to get them recognised. And I can kind of understand that. At the same time, obviously, I hear of, like, say, Eric Lang going to be bringing out the Bloodborne kind of board game with minis and everything, and part of me is thinking, you do fantastic work, Eric, but I hope you're bringing out the extra strong kind of shoulder pads for this one, because there's going to be an awful lot of kind of pressure and a kind of an awful lot of kind of weight on it as well. The reaction to BioShock, were you pleased with how people kind of reacted to the game, what they thought of the game and how they played the game?
I was pleased with what I had done and how I had represented it for the company. But if I am telling the truth, there were some things that I would definitely change at this point in my career. One of the things that I don't think we considered enough was the BioShock audience, their expectations of pricing and expectations of complexity. And it definitely was more of a board gamer's game. You know, and
Yeah.
there's reasons why you see a lot of stuff in grocery stores, Walmart, and things like that that are priced at $30 but have the Fallout brand or Walking Dead brands on them, don't really necessarily connect with the board game audience, but they connect with a different type of audience. So there's kind of a special balance that needs to be made when you're working with an IP that is so widely popular.
Yeah. I think when you're doing that, when you've got people that are expecting to pay $50 and they've got an entire world, then when it comes to the board game, it's like how do you make a different huge experience if people are expecting kind of 60, 70 hours kind of out of it? How do you do that? And it's a huge kind of undertaking. When you were working on BioShock Infinite, I mean, where were you? Did you have other things on the go at the same time when you were working on that, or were you purely focused on BioShock Infinite at the time?
So I think I submitted that one before I started working heavily on any of their other products, at least to production. You know, there's always that time gap that we have right after a game is sent to the manufacturing, and then when it actually comes out. So you're actually working on a lot of other products in between that time. But there's little edits and things that come through during that time. I don't remember super clearly, to tell you the truth. I'm sure I was working on a lot of different things. One of my issues early on as a starting off it with design is that I made a lot of things. When I was first starting out, I would have a new design pretty much every month. I would have something that I'd want to show people, and it's like, oh, I'm trying this out, and this is this interesting thing that I'm trying out. But I noticed that would take a lot of time away from the thing that I needed to focus on. And since then, I've developed into more of a person that kind of works on one project, works with it with all of my focus, and then after that project is finished and I feel it's complete, I move on to something else. So there's always stuff working in the back of my brain, and always different mechanics that I want to explore and different worlds that I want to create. But I try to not actually put a lot of effort into those things until I'm finished with the thing that I'm focused on. But during that time, I'm sure I was working on other things, but I don't know I don't believe Dead of Winter had started or Ashes had started at that time. They may have just been in the back of my mind. But they were definitely started right after that.
With Dead of Winter, and I mean, Dead of Winter is one of my favourite games. In fact, I drew a picture of, I think it was you and John and Jerry and Colby as zombies.
Oh, I remember that.
To John Gilman. Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah. So I did that. Yeah. That was the first step to try to get you on the show. No, that's a joke. But anyway, no, it's true. It's not true. It's true. I'm sad that way. But I mean, Dead of Winter, I think, was one of the first games where I went, this is how board games could be. Wow, because it took us in a completely kind of different direction. For me, it was really a kind of a substance over style game. It still looked fantastic, but I think if Dead of Winter was made nowadays, there would be, if it had appeared on Kickstarter, there would have been a push to have, several thousand zombie minis and every main character to kind of have minis on it as well. How did that come about? Were you and John just sitting down together, kind of spitballing ideas? Did John come to Plaid Hat and say, did they pitch the game, or was it something that kind of, how did that kind of come about?
So me and John were friends, and I had been going to his game days in Ohio pretty much every month, pretty religiously, because I was connected to him through some of the friends that I introduced me to board games that I went to high school with. So they had been going to his game days for a little bit, and when I heard about them, I pretty much went with them every single time I could because I had so much fun at them. So he had been working on a zombie game that he showed to me at that time at one of his game days. He just kind of taken it out, and it was really bad. but it got my brain burning so much when I was playing it. And I was like, John, let me take this and do whatever I want to it. And if I come back...
I'm just confirming that we've got you on tape now saying that John Gilmore made a bad game.
I've said this before many times. So let me take this and do whatever I want to it. And if you like what I changed, we can work on it together. And, John was such a good person to have on that project during that time, because it was just, he is so knowledgeable about what was going on in the industry. He always had the latest game. He always had something coming out. So being able to kind of collab with him and talk to him about that project was great. And yeah, when I came back, he was like completely on board, and we worked on it together since then.
Mm-hmm. When did you click that you had something special? When did you get to the point where you're like, actually, this is going to be turning heads, and it's going to be hitting tables and awful.
So back then, and to this day, I still don't show Colby my designs up until I'm kind of like, okay, I'm a little proud of this, right? Okay. So I think we had been working on it for a year and a half, if not 2 years together, before I thought it was ready to show. And the place where I decided to show it was we were all at Gen Con, and we kind of had some of the crew, the people that we knew would kind of like, that were kind of like surrounded Plaid Hat, our core people. And we knew like if we got them excited about the project at the same time that Colby was there, it would be something very special. And when we showed it to them, it was a smash. Like, people absolutely loved it, and they saw the potential of what the game could be. And from that point on, we were just like, this is going to be awesome. This is going to be a hit. Now, at that point, like, crossword cards didn't even exist yet. There was a lot of issues with the secret objectives. Like, I think you had 3 different potential secret objectives every single time you played the game. There was a lot of stuff that was still messed up, and it'd still probably be another year and a half before it was going to be released. So there was still a lot of stuff that needed to change, but that's pretty much, I'm pretty sure, and I think John would agree, that's when we knew that it was something special.
I just remember kind of sitting there going, feeling tense, and because of what was happening in the colony, it didn't matter there was many there, it was the fact there was characters built in there, and you were given, it was like, here's 2 little babies to look after. Yeah. And it's like, we need to do this. I think the first couple of times we'd never even played with a betrayal mechanic, because it was so hard, and it was so tough, and it was so down to the wire, and there was points where you're having to make decisions about kind of sacrifices, and it's still one of my, I think, defining board gaming things that made me realise that how special the hobby. There's always like Letters of Whitechapel. Again, it's a really, really tense game that, but that was one of the games where I went, this is really, really good. In fact, it did at the time push me to ask John Gilmore on. As I say, I was kind of the fan of the kind of the work. There's been a couple of expansions for that. Do you still go back to the kind of the Dead of Winter kind of portfolio and think, I've still got some ideas, there's still a couple of things I kind of like to do, I'd like to maybe change or add some extra things for it?
There is any game that I design, I'm pretty, except for IP games, because those are like contained things. Yeah. Any game where I'm part of the world creation, there's always going to be a little kind of like, oh, I could have done this. I could also do this. This would be awesome to do, but I mean, there's also the reality of like understanding, is there a need for this? Do people want this? Is this marketable? And then what is time investment in that going to take away from the other worlds or other things I want to explore? So
Yeah.
there's just always that balancing act. So yes is my answer, but it's complicated.
I don't think anyone would answer a question using a Facebook relationship status, but there you go.
Yeah.
I guess it is. I mean, you don't want to get to the point where you're kind of flogging the dead horse, where you release kind of like another kind of expansion. Is that what kind of attracted you about kind of Ashes then? Because Ashes seems to be the slow and steady kind of every so often I'll be searching, I'll go into the website and I'll be like, you guys have just released another different deck and I'm going to have to get it. Because you mentioned at the beginning you played a little bit of Magic.
Yeah, and that's...
You played a little bit of Dragon's Ball Z. So is that what kind of driven you to say, well, I want to make my own kind of Magic game?
Ashes was definitely driven from middle school Isaac. That's where it came from. And I'd always wanted to make a game that allowed the level of deck building that, CCGs, the level of creativity that I had back then, but that wouldn't cost someone hundreds of dollars. I didn't have very much money growing up, so those card games that I got to play, I only got to play with the cards that my friends were nice enough to give me, and they weren't that nice. So I didn't have very many good cards. So I wanted people to feel like they could go ahead and buy, not spend too much money, but still have an amazing amount of creativity in a box and trying out different combinations and doing different things. And Ashes was kind of born out of that want and that feeling that I was hoping to create. Because I even still felt at LCGs at that time were still a little bit too much of an investment and weren't giving you, everything in one box or everything in one. Usually you'd have to buy, multiple of the same product in order to get everything, So I really wanted to do that. And the other thing that really attracted me to it is that Magic and Dragon Ball Z both had a really good, they had interesting characters, but there was nobody that was necessarily like, this is you. This is your central person. This is who you represent. And that happens in Dragon Ball Z a little bit more, but I think that it just attracted me so much to create some other magical beings, that were characters, and it's like, this is who you are, and this is why you matter, and this is your history, and this is your style of play, and you can go ahead and tinker with that and be an interesting, powerful person, and so I was really interested in that concept as well.
In terms of, you mentioned tinkering, playtesting.
Mm-hmm.
How much more of a nightmare is it to playtest something like Ashes compared to playtesting Dead of Winter?
I am glad I did not know how much more a nightmare it was until after I had already done it. Because if I would have known, I don't know if I would have. But it's quite the experience. You really do need hundreds upon hundreds of more plays in order to collect the amount of data that you need in order to understand how people are feeling about the cards. And even then, you're never going to catch anything. There's a reason that these types of games have erratas and things come out after the fact, because there's no way you can test the thousands of combinations that are possible with just the playtesting resources that people have available to them with these games. And we don't have the luxury of releasing, a digital patch that costs us nothing.
Exactly.
Anything that we do or change, affects the player base a lot. And the community is very outspoken about those things when they do happen. So, we want to try to catch as much as possible, which requires more plays. And then every time we release something else, you have to test it against everything that's been released before it. So it's even more and more and more data that's required. So it's a bear. It's quite a bear. But it's one of my favorite types of games to play. So
Yes.
it's also was so enjoyable during that time. And Ashes is probably my favorite world that I've ever created. So it was also just an absolute thrill to create more characters within it.
Was it a conscious decision to have consistent art, to use the same artist for everything? Because one of the things, because you can recognize an Ashes deck.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take the Coke Pepsi challenge on that. I can recognize an Ashes deck out of anything else. A Magic deck, maybe not so. But if you had like it was a game show round and it says, is this from a fantasy art book or is it a Magic deck? I'd be like, I don't know. Do you know what? I don't know. What is the truth? Oprah GIF. However, with an Ashes one, it's the consistent art style that I've mentioned this. I kind of if you give me good art, then I'm kind of like, I'm a happy chap. Yeah. And that was one of the things with Ashes, is I was going through the deck, and I think it's the first time that I remember kind of going through and actually spending time kind of looking at the art, because the lines in it, and also the cards were white.
Mm-hmm.
Which usually it's like it's browns and greys, and it's like they've taken it from the bottom of the shoe, kind of type of the palette, kind of thing. And here I was holding a kind of a deck of kind of white cards with illustrations on it, and it really made the illustrations, the different characters kind of pop, and there was a realism to kind of that. Was that something that you decided kind of really, really early on within its development?
Yes, it was very, very important for me for Ashes to look different. I had always actually hated the look, especially of the graphic design on a lot of card games prior. So my goal with that was very much like, I want it to be beautiful and clean. I want the art to shine and pop right off the page. And usually nothing does that better than just white backgrounds with some variations. And when, Dave, our graphic designer, was able to put some stuff together according to the vision that I had hoped for, and Fernanda was able to come through with her amazing art pieces, it was just fantastic. Like, when Dead of Winter came around, I took over as the art director. Dead of Winter was my first project to work on, and I had found Fernanda and loved her stuff so much and thought it worked so well for Dead of Winter that I had to have her on the project. So I reached out to her even before I was allowed to. So
just like, no, don't say anything. Don't say anything. But I might be able to get you in a don't say a word. But Ashes. Anyone emails you, it's got Ashes in it. You got to do the surprise face. So practice your surprise face.
And I had actually originally I had thought, you know what? I think I want to go with a different style for Ashes and Fernanda, and I had enjoyed working with her so much that I thought, let me see if she can go ahead and do this different style that I'm hoping for. And when she had brought back some of the work that she was working on, I was just like, no, this isn't right. This isn't who she is. This isn't coming through. I can see the pain in her strokes that it wasn't who she was. So I was just like, Fernanda, just do what you do best, but do the direction that I'm doing, but do it in your style. Don't try to recreate somebody else's, And when she came back with the first character, which was actually Brennan, who was released as an expansion, we ended up not using Brennan for the first set. But when she came back with that piece, it was just like, this is going to be perfect, and people are going to love this. So from that point on, I just kind of let her be her, but trying to still come through with the vision that I was hoping for with the characters and their stylings and their clothing and everything from where they were from. It was, I kind of went crazy with that one. So, but like, man, oh man, like Saria is always going to be one of the pieces that I am so, so proud of, because I don't think before that point I had ever seen a character more clearly. And she exactly to the point, it was perfectly done by Fernanda, exactly how I saw it in my mind. And I just knew that it was going to be something special, that people are really going to connect with these characters. and her styling and the way that Dave put the graphics around those characters in order to make them shine was gorgeous, and I loved it. And it's exactly what I was hoping for with Ashes.
I mean, is it going to be something that's going to just gently tick along? Are you going to? Is it you still going to be continuing to work at that? Or are you going to reach a point where you've got to say, well, this is it. This is it. Everything's going to finish.
Well, that's a little bit out of my control. But it's as long as it's still profitable. I mean, there's another set coming out soon. So these types of games live and die by the community, and the people that are willing to continue supporting them and getting out there and playing them and enjoying them. And so far it's still going. So I'm happy with that, and we'll see what happens.
Have you thought about doing different things within the kind of the Ashes universe then? Have you thought of taking it a little bit away from the card game and doing kind of other type games within
it's going to always be like this. It's pretty much the same answer to your question with Dead of Winter. Kind of like there's always more. There's always more sitting in the back of my head. And I want to and I want to do more. And it just really honestly depends on what is more important for my time right now. I have to take into consideration, like, is this something worth pursuing more than this? And what is more exciting for me right now? Right now, I'm working on something else that's really, really exciting, but it's a brand new world, which is something I really like doing. So, not right now, but who knows? Maybe. I do love the Ashes world so much, and there have been plenty of ideas floated around for that world. It's just when is the right time for all of that?
Exactly. Is there any way that I can get long flowing locks like Aradale Summergirl?
I don't know. You're going to have to ask Fernanda that one.
The hair is, I mean, that is spectacular hair right there. I don't know what the hair regime is. I'm assuming that it's just fresh water that she uses on those locks because they are lustrous.
Yes.
We'll need to see. Is it just a good graphic design? Basically, that's what it kind of that's kind of what it comes down to.
I'm sure there's an Instagram filter for it now, so like, you can.
You better watch out because you could end up getting tagged in some kind of dodgy Twitter photography in a couple of hours when I find the kind of the Aradale kind of filter on Facebook or whatever, Snapchat. What's the plans next? I mean, the next thing you did was, you moved from kind of, as I say, the kind of the picking about the Ashes to kind of going into space.
Yes.
With Star Samurai.
Yeah.
Was that a conscious decision to go into sci-fi? I mean, you'd obviously done zombies. You were going to do a card game. Was that the kind of thing, I want to do something in space? Let me do something in space.
Well, Starship Samurai kind of came out of wanting to do something that was inspired by feudal Japan. And I had always been thinking about that in the back of my mind. And Starship Samurai just kind of came to me and it's like, you know what? There's so many feudal Japan games. But you know what there isn't very much of? Lots of giant mech games in the board game industry.
I thought you were going to say there isn't a lot of sharks on lasers.
And
sharks on lasers and giant robots in feudal Japan. What are we going to call it? We could call it Laser Shark Starship Samurai.
Exactly.
Kobe just went, no.
And so you just cut off the first part.
Exactly. You can have the second part. You can't have the bit with the sharks and the lasers. But I wanted sharks and lasers, Colby. You're no fun.
I was also getting very jealous of all of these awesome Kickstarter games with giant miniatures. So, and I had never done a game with giant miniatures, so I really wanted to do one because it looks really cool. So, it kind of all came out of that, me really wanting to explore something in that style of world and telling that kind of story. And I just really enjoyed the concept, and actually floated around a lot of different concepts early on when I had the mechanics of the game down. But that one seemed to resonate with people the most. So, that's how Starship Samurai was born.
Is it kind of exciting to be able to kind of say, I'd like to work on this, and as long as it kind of all works out, then you can basically kind of jump from genre to genre? I mean, do you, with things being commercialized, a bit more commercialized nowadays, and I'm obviously, Plaid Hat's owned by Asmodee, and obviously Asmodee will just say, make money, people, and then you'll go and make money and they'll be happy. But with the sheer volume on the amounts of games that seem to be coming out, do you also, and with you obviously being a business, do you also need to look at kind of current trends and kind of what's hot? Is there such a thing as what's hot in board games?
I think we're always, as a studio, we're looking at what's working for us as a studio.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that we're kind of carving out who we are as a company. And as we've grown more and more, and we've done this for a longer period of time, and the people that work with us have more experience, we're noticing more and more that what we're good at and what we're good at focusing on is creating worlds that tell good stories and are able to allow players to be part of those stories. Dead of Winter and Mice and Mystics are really kind of the games that really formed who we are. And they continue to be the games that are the most successful for us. And we are moving more in that direction of exploring what other types of stories can we tell, and that's really what's most exciting for us too. So it's kind of like that melding of both. What's exciting for us? What do we enjoy doing? And what are we good at? And how do we continue to do more of the things we're good at, better, more inventive? How do we get people connected to those things? Those are all the questions that we have to answer and come up with, and constantly make decisions to try to come up with that. But we're also not limiting ourselves to having to stick to just the old things that worked for us years ago, or, what the industry is working with. We don't want to just be following the industry. We want to also be changing the industry and reinventing the industry and trying things out that the industry hasn't thought of yet. So, it's all a balance. There's no one perfect answer, and there's no one perfect game that's going to solve all of those things, but as long as we're all excited to keep doing what we're doing, I think that's a good sign.
No, I think what sums up Plaid Hat for me is when you go on the site, there's so many different types of games on there, so many different genres, so many kind of different styles, different art. I mean, you could it's a good place to start a game collection. I mean, I've got Mice and Mystics on my shelf. I've got obviously various kind of Ashes kind of copies, expansions and stuff like that as well, and obviously can continue to buy them because I'm just like that. But then, I mean, you've got like Gen 7, which is as I say, Stuffed Fables, which, is all these kind of various different things, which, I've heard people just the other day talking about, Stuffed Fables, they're having an awful lot of fun with that. But they were talking about, is it Comanauts, which is going to be the next one? And one of the, I think it was Andy and Steve from Polyhedron Collider. Andy was talking about Comanauts, and he was basically saying, as far as I'm concerned, he's had so much fun with Stuffed Fables. It's kind of like an Insta purchase for him. Yeah. Because he knows he's going to have as much fun. He's potentially going to have as much fun with Comanauts. Right. So that's kind of where it kind of comes from. Is there a genre or is there a game style that you still want to tackle that you haven't had a chance to look after, or are you working on it just now? So I've got to shut up.
One thing that I haven't worked on yet, that I would like to, that I find incredibly difficult, is a party game. I would really like to do something that's accessible to a lot of people very quickly and makes people laugh crazily and doesn't last too long. Because I love that. I love that feeling. And there are so many games that do it well, and those are games that have been, out there for such a long time, and there's so many different variations of party games that it's so hard to come up with something that's really, truly unique and interesting. But I would love to do that one day. We'll see.
I think you've got to look back to your roots of the corn on the cob game. I think.
There you go.
I think it is. Now, listen, hear me out. Hear me out, okay? Hear me out, right? It's like two kind of cardboard representations of corn on the cob, okay? And you basically have to either pretend to be doing miming or something like that, like a job profession, or a character, or a shape, or something like that. And all you've got is like 2 or 3 cardboard corn on the cobs. There's your party game. You're welcome.
Perfect. Go, I'm done.
There you go, it's done. Game finished. Do you know what I mean? And you could call it Let's Be Corny.
Perfect.
That's it. $14.99. As many players as you want. It's simple. You could have different expansions. Why
are you doing podcasts? You should just design games.
Welcome to this is what I do. It's like instant game design.
There you go.
You ask for there's your party game.
Oh my gosh.
There you go. I've got one more question for you, because I'm aware obviously that this this is like the evening for me. It's obviously during the day for yourself. Yeah. And you should probably be doing far more important work than talking to myself.
No, it's fine.
It's
fine. I just meant games. It's fine.
I've been doing stuff. I've been working. I've been making notes on this fantastic party game I've just invented.
Nice.
Anyway, there's a popcorn expansion. Write that down. And if Colby brought you into the office, sat you down, and said, "Look, Asmodee have been on the phone, and they said they're really, really pleased with you, and basically, as a reward, you get to access the big Asmodee Games Vault, and that gives you access to any game at all. But you're allowed 3 of them. What 3 games, if you could have any games at all, first edition, second editions, expansions as well, what 3 games would you like to get your hands on?"
This is hard. This is a very hard question, because
that's why I left it to
I
the
can
end.
get anything I want. So
I know that.
I pretty much have every game that I want.
Come on.
Here's what I really want. I want someone to teach me every game that I want to play. Access to the board games is not an issue for me. Access to someone teaching me the board games, that's another issue. Oh my gosh!
So you're just gonna drag somebody like Richard Ham over.
So
have him turn up.
I haven't picked up the new Twilight Imperium yet. I would like to play it.
Okay.
And there's that. So there's one. What else? I haven't played Gloomhaven yet, so I should probably do that.
That's probably a good idea.
And
you don't want to accept the other Isaac out there, do you?
I think that I will go ahead and probably pick up Scythe. I've played it, but I don't own it. So, and I like it quite a bit. But
you need the expansions as well.
Yes,
so we'll sort you out.
Well, I just started playing Scythe not that long ago, and I only got introduced to Scythe as the legacy with the Legacy expansion. So I've been playing the Fenris, the Rise of, or is it Rise of Fenris? I don't remember.
Rise of Fenris, yeah.
Rise of Fenris.
Yeah.
I've only been playing the campaign of that, so I've played like 4 or 5 campaign sessions, and there's a lot of cool stuff in there. So, But I don't know. See, here's the thing. Like, I don't know if I should pick it up because I don't know if I'll ever get the chance to play it again. I don't know.
I know.
I don't know.
I know. I am Jack. I am Jack's jealous rage. If people want to keep an eye on what you're up to on the internet webs, where do we find you on the internet webs?
You can find me at Isaac's Ashes on Twitter. You can also find me by emailing me. You can Isaac@plaidhatgames.com. And that's really the two places that I'm most active. A lot of people friend me on Facebook, but honestly, I'm not doing too much on Facebook all the time besides accepting whatever things my friends are doing.
Exactly.
So
occasionally I'll just go down the timeline and just like stuff randomly.
If you want to be my friend on Facebook and look at pictures of me from college, there you go. You can do that. It's a beard comparison. And whatever I'm tagged in from every now and then, or whatever my mom decides to post up about me. That's my Facebook page. It's a great area to go.
Oh no, there's not like Isaac on the rug, is there, or something like that? Here's Isaac at 18 months old.
Right. I'm sure there is on my mom's Facebook.
Wow,
she's uploaded my entire life there. So, if you want to see every version of Isaac that's ever existed, it's on my mom's Facebook page.
I might put a link to that. I might not. I'm just gonna make it potentially. I'm gonna have to think about that type of decision.
We got to give her credit. I wouldn't be in this industry if it wasn't for her giving me that business card.
Exactly.
She claims all the time she's my agent and deserves 10%.
She'll be making design decisions next.
Yes, exactly.
Oh wow! You need to make her a card. You need to make her a card in Ashes.
I don't think she's ever even played any of my games.
Oh my word! I didn't realize this was turning into
she has every single one because she wants them. It's like, I want to put them on display.
Of course. Oh yeah, of course. You know, she's proud of what you did.
Yes, she's a good mom.
So we'll take these links and we'll put them in the show notes.
Yes.
And either there's going to be a lot more Isaac in your life, or you're going to make a choice. You just then have to understand why you made that choice. If you want to keep an eye on what we're up to, then you can find us in various places. If you go and search for We're Not Wizards in the Googles, you'll find us on Facebook and our website, and Twitter and Instagram, and we've got our blog. You can find us on all the various podcast catchers like Stitcher and Spreaker and Acast and Castbox and Spotify. For some reason we're on Spotify and people listen to us on Spotify. I don't know what horrific shuffling mood you must be in if you're listening to like Ariana Grande and the next thing you know you get some mad Scottish guy talking to somebody else. I don't know, that's obviously again your life decision. You have to understand why you made that decision. If you like what you've listened to tonight, then please go into Apple Podcasts and drop us a subscription or a rating. If you are going to give us a rating, then don't give us 10 stars because it'll make us big-headed. But don't give us 1 star because it'll make us cry. Give us 5 because it's in the middle when it's average and we're just a little bit average. But the person who's not being average tonight or today or tomorrow is rather wonderful, the rather fantastic Isaac Vega. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you
for coming on.
Thank you for having me on, Richard. I appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure. There's only 3 more things to do. Well, 3 more things. The first thing is, if you have liked what you've listened to tonight, go and tell somebody. That'd be brilliant. The second thing is to remember that we are many things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards, Isaac?
No. You're very not wizards. You're many things. You are not wizards.
Definitely many things, but not wizards. And the third thing is to say goodbye. So it's a goodbye from the wonderful, the fantastic.
I need to leave now.
You have to leave now.
I gotta go.
Say goodbye, Isaac.
Bye, everyone. I love you.
And it's a goodbye from me. Remember, stay safe, roll sixes, and check out all of Isaac's stuff. There'll be links in the show notes. Buy it all. Make everybody happy. Make Isaac happy.
Yes.
You know.
I need that money.
But until then,
my mom keeps taking 10% of my money. I need it.
Make Isaac's mum happy. Goodness sake. But until the next time, goodbye.
Bye.
A wizard is never late. Nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.